Hello there. The relationship between the US and the UK has always been complicated. It's been called the special relationship and two nations divided by a common language. And one cultural exchange that has had incredibly mixed results is TV adaptations. There have been successes and failures on both sides of the Atlantic, and I'll be looking at as many as I can find during this series. The first of which is actually a game show. Match Game in the US, retitled Blankety Blank in the UK. The premise of the show is the same in both countries. Two members of the public compete against each other, trying to match their answers with the answers of a panel of celebrities. The answers come from a phrase read out by the host, with words missing that often have a potential double entendre.
"Oh, Roger," sighed Amanda, as they parted on the station platform. "Are those tears of true love?" "No," replied Roger. "I've just trapped my blank in the carriage door."
John said, "I haven't had a blank in a month."
These types of questions were introduced to Match Game as the first series was suffering from flagging ratings, due to the more pedestrian questions that they were asking. And adding these somewhat salacious questions gave the show a much-needed selling point that transferred over to the UK when that version here began. Match Game started in the US in 1962, and Blankety Blank didn't reach the UK until 1979, by which time the original US series, presented by Gene Rayburn, had finished and been brought back, with 6 celebrity panellists giving answers to 2 members of the public, instead of the original US format of 2 teams of celebrities paired with a member of the public. It was the second format that the UK series began with. Both of the first 2 US series were daily, Monday to Friday, daytime shows, although the second run also had a weekly evening version. And again, the UK followed this evening format as part of the BBC's Saturday evening lineup. Both the UK and US versions would go through various cancellations and returns to TV over the years, and cycle through various presenters too. In the US, Gene Rayburn would be replaced by Ross Schaefer in 1990 in a short-lived return, before he would make way for Michael Berger in yet another short-lived run from 1998 to 99. Its most recent revival came in 2016, which lasted until 2021 and was hosted by Alec Baldwin. In the UK, the series began with Terry Wogan as host from 1979 to 1983, before Les Dawson took over from 1984 to 1990.
"What can one say except?"
It was then revived in 1997 with Paul O'Grady as host in his drag queen alter ego of Lily Savage.
Before you turn over, I would just like to say this is not a repeat, no, and I'm not Terry Wogan on the HRT, no. This is the all-new Blankety Blank,
which continued until 2002, although it also switched channels in the middle of that run. It was then revived again, back on the BBC, from 2021 onwards, with Bradley Walsh as the host. Each host would bring something different to the show, but it was the variety of celebrity panellists that would be the show's unique selling point, as they each brought their own personalities and abilities to each game. And yet there were some stereotypes that both countries' versions carried over. Camp celebrities dancing on the edge of broadcastable answers, the ditzy celebrities playing up to their dumb public image or subverting it by either giving a silly or sensible answer, and the well-known wits of the day who would provide slightly subversive off-the-wall answers. The celebrities were often ridiculed by the host for giving awful answers.
"Pen now."
It's pince-nez.
"Pince no." What are you on about? It's not spelt like that.
I'm going to be the guest celebrity at the Shrimp Festival in Gulf Shores, Alabama, October the 1st through the 5th.
Who cares?
In the UK, Les Dawson in particular was known to ridicule everyone involved, including the BBC, the show itself, and himself in his trademark self-deprecating persona.
Well, Fred did very well on Masterman, and we hope he'll do the same again tonight, because this show is about as interesting as watching a plank warp.
Both countries' versions of the show were part entertainment and part variety to a degree, but the big difference between the two countries was the prizes involved. In the US, the contestants played for cash, up to 5-figure amounts, while in the UK, the Independent Broadcasting Authority restricted the prize value allowed on game shows, which meant Blankety Blank became notorious for how poor its prizes were, something which host Les Dawson would often also poke fun at. This restriction was lifted in the 1990s and the prizes became slightly better, although still not in the same league as the US prize fund. It's interesting that the format keeps coming back, something of a rarity for game shows, especially as the format of double entendres is somewhat lost on modern audiences, who are far more exposed to single entendre on television today than they once were. But what's really fun about these shows now is how they act as a celebrity time capsule, a window into who was famous at that time and whose celebrity has endured. Some guests in both countries seemed to only be famous for appearing on these types of shows, while others were or went on to be big names. It was a show that succeeded in both countries at one time or another, that worked as family entertainment, because it was silly enough for kids and had enough edge for adults to share a secret giggle at. But, to be honest, it was never one of my favourites. I always found it a little repetitive, and so the enjoyment I got was really from the host and how entertaining the guests were on any particular week. Having said that, it's also impossible not to play along when you're watching an episode, so maybe that's where the charm really lies. Thank you. Goodbye.